Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. Good Tuesday morning. Welcome back from your Memorial Day weekend. We were here, but it's okay if you took the day off. It's fine. In fact, it was a beautiful day for it, but we're back, and we're seizing the day, as God would expect us to. Coming up at 7:05, Cully Stimson of Heritage Foundation will join us with the latest on the prosecution of the suspected murderer of those two Israeli embassy staffers. 7:35 brings us Ed Martin, former U.S. attorney. Well, we said, hey, let's make this a regular weekly thing, and here he is 1 week later. Ed Martin's right back with us with the Justice Department. And then at 8:05, Phil Wegman covering the White House. Latest news from him. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
So I have to alert everybody. This is kind of a unique day in the news cycle of, honestly, close to the last 10 years. As we perused the headlines and the breaking stories, we had the shooting last night in Philadelphia, and that's about it.
I know, it was weird.
This is a very weird thing that I can't remember this happening in, really, since Trump came on the national stage. Pretty much the only other major thing in the news, other than the shooting in Philadelphia, is that President Trump and Secretary Hegseth and Vice President Vance all attended the Memorial Day observations at Arlington yesterday. And
that
President
is why
Trump delivered a speech, but...
No, I agree. I was looking through things and didn't really find much. We do these, we sort of gather articles, and not much out there. So we're going to talk about cooking today. No, I'm just kidding.
And well, every single major story that is noteworthy and worthy of conversation is basically the same as it was yesterday morning. It's a very bizarre occurrence.
There are days where we cannot get through things. I have seen you, and Heather is talking about. No, we can't. We really can't get to that.
No time for that story. No time for that story.
And so many of the stories are multifaceted that it takes several sections to get through the whole story. Yeah. And not today.
We've
covered everything.
Basically, not a whole lot happened in the last 24 hours.
Yes, but something did happen in France or in Vietnam.
Well, and again, this sort of broke during the show yesterday.
Thank God.
Talked about it. We had, but it was in the morning, and we were obliquely referencing it. This video that had we've already sort of talked about it, but we should dive into it a little bit further.
Sure.
This very bizarre instance on the French president's
do a whole
plane.
show on the wife.
And still have things left
unsaid.
And still have many things left unsaid. President Emmanuel Macron, who, as you know, is in a shall we call it a spring-autumn relationship with his wife?
Let's
just say,
probably, yes.
If the gender roles were reversed in this marriage, the elder of the two would be looked upon in such a creepy, suspicious, kind of molesty kind of way.
Molesty.
She was married and 40 years old, and she was President Macron's teacher when he was 15.
Yes.
That's when they met.
Yes.
Now, there's no suggestion that anything untoward occurred.
Oh, I'll suggest it. What are you talking about? What? It's the French.
So you think she seduced him when he was 15? This is a Mrs.
Have you heard
Robertson.
of Mary Kay Letourneau or Mary something Letourneau? It happens.
All right. So apparently this is like but it has a happy ending, just like Joe and Mika's workplace romance. Their Me Too situation had a happy ending, as far as we know, until that thing goes down. When Joe and Mika break up, it's going to be the greatest, ugliest, most vicious, despicable, ugly.
No, I think they would never
ever.
publicly break up. They would live separately and act like everything's great. They would never. It's a money making thing. They're little,
perhaps. Well, and I guess you could say the same thing here. All right, so the president with his much older wife. Also, she's like a skeleton.
I know.
There's something going on there.
You're French. I get it. That whole eating thing is reserved for tourists.
Are you kidding? But they have the best food in France.
Oh, I know,
you
but I mean, you got to be thin. If you're
every
the poor
hour,
guy in
I'd have a
France.
croissant. Yeah,
Well, I know.
guess.
Yeah.
So he's doing an international trip, and the first stop is in Vietnam. They land on the tarmac at Vietnam, and unbeknownst to him, the airplane door has been opened by the staff. He can be seen immediately by cameras, and then you see a set of arms,
Claws,
hands, basically. But now, when we saw the video briefly yesterday during the show, it looked like the hand came out and like smacked him. But it turns out now you can see it's both hands.
Now you can see it on slow motion. Thank you, X.
No, this thing is like the Zapruder film. It's been broken down so many times, and you can see that it's two hands pushing at the president's face,
mouth.
Yeah, and like pushing him out of the way. Then he immediately turns and looks and sees that the door is open and that cameras are on him, and he does a very awkward sort of pose and smile. And then it turns out we see whose hand it was, because the same distinctive red jacket is being worn by Brigitte, his wife. So he was, call it a slap, call it a push, call it a claw or a mangle, but there was definitely some sort of physical confrontation between the two of them.
Yeah, and it does look like she was going directly for the mouth, like she was telling him to shut up, kind of, and pushing him and getting violent. And that is, it's really weird.
Well, according to a source close to the president, and I'm quoting now, it was a moment when the president and his wife were unwinding one last time before the trip began, playfully teasing each other.
Oh, that's what I do when I want to unwind with my husband.
Playful teasing.
Little beating.
So, first of all, your husband was not your teacher when you were 15 years old, and is not 25 years older than you, because your husband would be in prison if that were the case. So, so who knows? The president himself put out a statement yesterday that said, no, I can't do a French accent.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
There's a video showing me joking and teasing my wife, and somehow that becomes a sort of geoplanetary catastrophe, with people even coming up with theories to explain it. Oh, we have theories. We have many theories.
Yeah, I also just love the idea that he thinks we're just a normal couple. You know, this whole that's just us play fighting right before, like normal couples do. No, you'll never be a normal couple, ever.
So I have a theory about this, and it all goes back to Joe Biden. And I will explain that in a moment as we dive deep into President Macron's catastrophic international trip and what's really at play here. And by the way, how this shows that he at least is more honest than the Biden administration was. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Yes, there you go. See, you thought that.
Look at the analysis we've got
doing
here.
A gossip thing here. No, this is actually a political lesson for the American populace.
We're going to make it serious. It's so much fun. We were having fun. Now you're going to get all serious.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Now, first, before we get to the lessons that we can learn here in the States after this viral video, which I think still requires a full explanation, of the president of France getting playfully teased by his wife and his face getting pushed around and smacked. There are some great AI-generated pictures of Macron with a giant red print on his cheek. This is hilarious.
Can I just take a moment to also say there is this hilarious side theory. The flight attendant who is standing out there, she's a very small woman.
Yeah.
She looks Asian. She has a scarf over her shoulder, and if you look, it looks like, so everyone's talking about this, it looks like blood. It looks like her clothes has been ripped and her shoulder is exposed and bloody, but it's the scarf. But when I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, she did attack the flight attendant. So anyway, the theories are hilarious out
She's
there.
She's just on this murderous rampage.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
going through the plane. That's quite possible. Yeah, no, it should be pointed out that there are many, 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 many rumors that have been flying around about this relationship, about the president and his relationship. Let me just say, the only ones that we know to be true is that, in fact, she was 40 years old when little Emmanuel was 15. She was married, she had kids, and she was his teacher. That's true. Now, the question as to whether she is, in fact, a biological male, as far as we know, not proven. Not proven. But that is there's a lot of speculation about this relationship and about this woman. But what we do know is what we've told you in terms of facts. All right, that's number one. Number two, how does this compare to the Biden relationship? Well, Joe Biden is 10 years older than Jill Biden. Jill was the babysitter of Joe's children when they started to have and she was married as well. And they had an affair and ended up getting married. But other than that, there are no real similarities here on the surface. However, number one, the French president's administration did not immediately jump out and claim that this video was a fake. Did you notice that?
I did.
They could have easily done that. These are just cheap fakes. The president's opponents are trying to make him look bad. This is taken out of context. Well, I mean, they are claiming it's taken out of context.
Yes.
But they could have jumped out there and did exactly what the White House did for weeks and weeks and weeks, claiming the videos that we saw of our president in compromised positions were actually cheap fakes. And the rest of the media would, of course, go along with it and say, yes, that's right. How dare you people? But so right on the onset, the French president's administration is actually more honest and more forthcoming than the Biden White House was. And Jake Tapper, there's no book to write about this now, which is very sad for Jake, and I feel bad for him because at some point the gravy train on original sin is going to dry up. All right, so that's number one. But number two, the official story here. There's a video showing me joking and teasing my wife, and somehow that becomes a sort of geoplanetary catastrophe with people even coming up with theories to explain it. The videos are real, and yes, sometimes people tamper with them, but people are attributing all kinds of nonsense to them. So he even sort of danced around that. He even said, yeah, sure. Okay. Sometimes people tamper with videos.
It's real close to cheap fakes. It's real close, I got to say.
So anybody who looks at this sees that they are not joking around. Anyone who looks at this and sees the expression on his face knows that they're not joking around and they know that this isn't teasing. Anyone who watches them after the fact as they walk down the stairs, you noticed the body language between the two of them.
Well, he offers his arm. He offers his arm to her. She ignores him. It's very Hillary, Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Like, she does not want to touch him. She's mad. And it's obvious that he composed himself just for a few seconds and then came back out in view. And you wonder if he said something like, we're on camera. But she was stiff. She was not going to touch him. It was obviously because,
and his hand is in this tight, clenched fist.
You noticed that fist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we both have playful relationships with our spouses where you do that kind of fake fighting and it's funny and it's just the two of you and stuff like that. Many couples do that kind of thing. This was not this. I mean, if I ever reached out at my husband, the thing that tells you is if you, of course, I've watched slowed down films of this. I swear I'm like, Zapruder film. It's so embarrassing. But, he's completely shocked when it happens. He does not expect
This was not playful teasing.
This was not playful. And also, you don't reach and really grab someone's mouth like she did. It's very aggressive.
And once again, if the gender roles are reversed, if this were a man who had married a 25-year younger student of his, and then there ended up being some kind of abuse, physical abuse, that the world would be going insane. I mean, we're going a little insane right now because it's funny, but it wouldn't be funny. It would be horrific, right? Which, by the way, tells you a little something about men and women being different, and our perception of men and women in these roles are obviously different, and that's understandable and appropriate. That's fine. But but why would he come out and say, "Oh, we were just teasing, it was fun," and come up with that kind of outlandish, completely unbelievable lie? And the answer is, he just witnessed for the last 4 years. He knew what Joe Biden was like up close.
Yes.
He dealt with Joe Biden on a regular basis behind closed doors, where everybody in the White House and everyone in the media lied to the world and said, he's fine, he's sharp as a tack, he's on top of his game. And Macron saw all of that, saw them basically get away with it, and so he will lie now. This is the larger problem with what the American media did with Joe Biden, is that when you accept the lie for your own political reasons because you hate Trump, so it's worth perpetrating and promoting a lie that everybody with their own plain eyes can see is a lie, then it tells every world leader they can do the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're seeing play out right here. Biden got away with a much worse lie than this, so I'll just go ahead and lie. And now, will people start challenging this? Will they start actually prying? And is it any of our business, for that matter? Well, I think it is.
Well,
I think it is.
And it's the same thing, Larry, of you're telling people it didn't happen when they saw it with their own eyes.
Yes. Oh, what you're seeing isn't what you think it is. It's something else. And I'm going to tell you what it is. And what you tell us is completely unbelievable. No one in their right mind would believe it. And yet you're compelled to believe it because you have no choice. And that's where we are right now. And this is so the original sin, again, continues. Not the sin of a leader lying to you, because that's pretty normal. The sin, the original sin in Jake Tapper's book, is the media, is grown people who are actually charged with challenging stories like this and trying to find the truth, relinquishing that responsibility. And that said, for all I know, the president's wife is, in fact, a man. It's 5:24.
Coming up, there's an update on the killing of those embassy staffers in Washington, D.C., and the Washington Post deletes a post about the issue. We'll get into it. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
WMAL.
5:36 now. Coming up at 7:05, Cully Stimson from Heritage Foundation. We'll talk about the prosecution of that suspected terrorist who murdered 2 Israeli staff members, embassy members. 7:35, Ed Martin will join us in at 8:05. Phil Wegman, White House correspondent. Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. I mentioned Jake Tapper just now, and we have more audio of Jake. He's still selling books. And he was on Piers Morgan yesterday, and we need to dissect what he said, and we will. Let's get to the killing of those 2 Israeli staff. It's amazing how the rest of the world has sort of forgotten this story already.
Instantly.
Two embassy. If these 2 worked, I was trying to come up with a correct analogy. If these 2 worked for the Ukrainian embassy here in Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
And were murdered by an American citizen who supports the Russian cause, whatever the hell the Russian cause is.
Yeah.
This not only would this be wall-to-wall news coverage, but President Trump would be directly indicted for the murder and responsible for it. And yet the American political leaders who chant the exact same thing, free, free Palestine, that this scumbag chanted when he was arrested, there no more questions for them.
Nope.
No, they said thoughts and prayers, nothing more needed.
Yep.
And this story disappears. This was just, 5 days ago.
Yeah, no shining a light on universities that promote this, that allow this, that encourage this. Nope. We just moved on.
Yeah.
It is revolting.
Over the weekend, the Washington Post had an article and put out a post on X promoting the article. And this is a typical Washington Post navel-gazing thought piece where they, provide. But it's not an opinion piece. It is, this is supposed to be reporting, and they talk to, rabbis, and they talk to leaders, and they talk to, it's so, hand-wringing and all that without ever looking in the mirror about the way they cover the news over in Gaza and the way they cover the protests here in America and encourage it. But this was the X post that accompanied the article. The killings of two – this is on the Washington Post, I want to remind you. This is the Washington Post social media account. Jeff Bezos pays for this garbage. The killings of two Israeli embassy staffers amplify the confusion felt since October 7th attacks about where Jews belong.
Excuse me?
Where Jews belong. Confusion about where Jews belong.
It is so shocking.
After many hours of it being up there and multiple people commenting on it, I want to remember, was it Friday? I think maybe it was Saturday when this came out. It was Friday, excuse me. After much derision and criticism. By the way, real nice, right before Sabbath. Yeah. Right. They posted it right before.
The Jewish community can't respond.
Observant Jews can't respond.
Right.
They then deleted it. They said, we deleted a previous version of this tweet that lacked the proper context.
That's right. We were outraged because we just missed the context, Larry.
Where do we belong?
This is a firm belief, though.
Where do we as people belong?
Yeah, this is a belief, though. They really nailed it, right? They really nailed the issue here. Jews don't belong in certain places, right? That's according to
them.
These people who scream, peace to or freedom for Palestine and like from the river to the sea. I mean, that whole phrase means they need to be out of Israel entirely. That entire chunk of land needs to be given over to the people of Gaza because they've done so much with Gaza and the West Bank.
Well, and where do you get off thinking that Jews have some sort of historic right to that land?
Yeah, of course. Exactly. Yeah.
Point to some sort of archaeological or historical evidence that suggests that they have any business in that land. They're colonists, after all. They didn't have any right to that land until 1947 when the Rothschilds and all their gold and money took it over. That's the outrageous lies that they would push for you. I've got an idea, Washington Post. I can tell you where Jews belong. They belong wherever they damn well please.
Yep.
Just like anyone else on this planet.
But that is also that is their historic. I mean, they were there. Pick up a Bible, you idiots! Like they were there.
Yes.
That is actually wrong that they weren't there. That they don't have.
I get that.
Yeah,
obviously they have the historic claim. But even if you extend it even further than that,
right.
Every person of every race and every religion belong wherever they would like to be.
Right.
Why isolate the Jews? Would they write that sentence about any other ethnic or racial or religious group anywhere on the planet?
You said it perfectly there. You said they're colonizers, and that's why the white South Africans are not allowed, who also were there before many of the black inhabitants of South Africa, who I'm not saying should take a hike. I'm just saying that, the white South Africans are not new. They've been there for 300 plus years.
They settled. The Afrikaners settled South Africa from the Netherlands. The same time they were settling the continental United States. It was like 1650, I think.
Right, but to these activists, it doesn't matter because white people are always colonists. I mean, this is the whole Kendi, book come to reality that white people are oppressors. They always need to leave. They need to leave. They're always the bad guys.
Yeah. Meanwhile, as of now, the death penalty is being sought in the first-degree premeditated execution terrorist murders of these two. Cully Stimson is making that case as well, and he'll be joining us at 7:05. Right now it's 5:43.
WMAL, making sense of social media because big tech can't be trusted. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
As promised, Jake Tapper continues his book tour, this time trying to sell books in London, I guess, with the Piers Morgan show. Although, Piers' YouTube show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, is a worldwide phenomenon where he brings a panel of 7 or 8 people on to shout at each other for an hour, and he makes all the money. Yeah. We should really think about expanding our platform here and It's pretty easy money. Here is the exchange with Jake Tapper, where it appears, as is typical on these book tours, asked the same question that Megyn Kelly asked about 10 days ago. But Jake Tapper, now that he's gotten a little comfortable with his talking points, sort of reveals quite a bit in how he's now repeated them over and over and over again.
In your case, do you feel that you owe the American people an apology for slightly dropping the ball with this?
Slightly dropping the ball. I love how he's backed his way into this.
Yeah.
Because, I don't.
It's very British, though. Honestly, it's very British to give someone an out and off ramp, not to shove it in their face.
So the question is, do you owe the American people an apology? Which, to be fair to Piers, is not the same question. The question that's been asked all the time is, do you owe Laura Trump an apology?
Right.
Who famously, during the 2020 campaign, had said, Biden doesn't seem cognitively with it, and Tapper yelled at her and cut off her microphone and ended the interview because, in his mind, she was mocking his stutter. So now the question is, do you owe the American people an apology?
And not just to Laura Trump.
I feel like I owe the American people an acknowledgement that I wish I had covered the story better.
Did you follow that? Apology? Apology? No, but an acknowledgement. How about that?
This is exactly how my husband apologizes. I acknowledge that I put your wool sweater in the dryer and now it's the size of a Barbie. But I didn't know.
I could have done the laundry better. Wait, are you acknowledging that you ruined my clothes? I acknowledge that I
got it wrong. I could have been better.
No,
that's exactly right.
He didn't even say that. He didn't even say I got it wrong.
You're right.
I could have been better.
Could have been better.
I was good. I was damn good.
No, and then
I could have been better.
And then my husband goes, "At least I washed it. At least I did your laundry. I want to kill
what?
him.
Fine. I won't do anything. I'll just watch football all day. Is that what you want?"
That I look, knowing what we know now,
but we knew it then. That's the point.
Yes.
Looking back on that interview, which I feel tremendous humility about, she was right, and
he keeps saying that. I feel tremendous humility. I don't think he's using the word right. What does that mean?
You know that word means.
It is. It's a Princess Bride moment.
Totally.
I feel tremendous humility. Humility is not the right word. He should feel embarrassed. He should feel regretful. He should feel ashamed. Humility is not the right word in this context, but he keeps saying that. That's the talking point. That's been fed to him by his PR consultants.
Yes,
he hired PR consultants for this.
And you can tell the lines. The two Bidens, they are now pivoting over to Trump. They're saying, well, I mean, let's move forward, because that's the other talking point. I want to move forward. And the moving forward is, let's look at the other president, right? Let's look at Trump's health. They've already
learned. Yeah, no, we'll get to that a little later in the program, how really this whole story is about Donald Trump's deception. That's the takeaway from these two, is that really we should be looking at how Donald Trump is deceiving the American people about his cognitive decline. Oh, it's beautiful. It's 5:53.